Melodic death metal has seen a hell of a renaissance in 2022, and I've got 10 melodic death metal albums to show you just how sick this subgenre is. Nightrage Abyss Rising, released 18 February, one of the most underrated and underappreciated melodic death metal bands that's on this list. If you miss that 90s Swedish melodic death metal sound, Nightrage's newest album Abyss Rising has you 100% covered. Hailing from Greece, Nightrage captures that addictive energy of earlier melodic death metal acts while adding some serious chops in the riffing and songwriting department. These guys clearly know what they're doing, and they still kill it even on this 9th studio album. The band knows how to construct some seriously earworm choruses that stand up against the aggressive riffing throughout the record, and holy hell, do those guitar solos absolutely slay on the 13 songs on Abyss Rising. Thematically, this record marks the final chapter of a trilogy that's lyrically based on Dante's Inferno, so if you dig that, there's a lot to love here in the quick 39-minute runtime. It's also worth spinning their earlier records, The Venomous and Wolf to Man, to get that full trilogy experience. Miseration, Black Miracles, and Dark Wonders, released April 22nd on Massacre Records. I usually check out bands without looking up their backstories or their members. I love the mystery, what can I say? Throughout listening to Miseration's new record, though, I kept thinking, man, this reminds me of Scar Symmetry, and there's a reason for that. Christian Alvstam is in the damn band. It's been about a decade since Miseration's last release, and man, does this record absolutely kill. This is well-created melodic black and death metal that explores a ton of different vibes, from fast to slow to visceral and intense. I came out of this album, though, thoroughly impressed with its technical approach and melodic inclusion with the brutal riffing. One thing I really loved were the symphonic passages, too, to heighten that melodic focus in the compositions. The production is fantastic, very polished, despite the viciousness throughout. Easily an Album of the Year contender in the melodic death metal category. That's why it's on this list. I don't see too many of you talking about Miseration. Brymir, Voices in the Sky, released August 26th on Napalm Records. I've said it before many times, the Finnish do metal like no other. This was my first run with Brymir, and I was completely blown away by their ability to write spellbinding and entrancing melodic, heavy, and catchy songs that are a straight-up blast to listen to. I haven't had this much fun with a Norse mythological themed melodic death metal record in this vein since Ensiferum's golden age of melodic death records. Voices in the Sky marks Brymir's 4th studio-length release. What I loved about the songs were their ability to get in and get out, but still be unbelievably engaging throughout that 50-minute runtime. That addictive, folk-drenched, symphonic, melodic death metal sound is in full force here, and Brymir knows just how to grab you by the neck on the battlefield and never let you go. If you miss those days of the early to mid-2000s era of melodic death metal, then you really can't go wrong here. Brymir executes that vibe perfectly and makes it entirely their own. Wolfheart, King of the North, released 16 September. Wolfheart is a band that seems to keep picking up momentum like a warhorse, constantly pursuing its enemies. King of the North is 9 massive tracks, and while that is a huge undertaking not only to compose, but also listen to as a fan, I'm extremely happy to say, though, that this record is phenomenal from start to finish. Wolfheart have spent years perfecting their sound, and it shows. This is their most mature outing to date, touting a huge emotional component to the melody, chest-shattering vocals, introspective lyricism, and captivating folklore. One cool thing about King of the North too is that every song is a different story in Finnish mythology specifically, which is a very cool thing that you don't see too much in metal narratives. I love the collaborations on the record too. Like for example, Jesse Leach of Killswitch Engage fame is on the track Ancestor, and it's one of the most powerful songs on the record. King of the North is easily one of the best records in their whole catalog. And they've opened up some new tricks in their arsenal too, showing that they have no signs of stopping anytime soon. I could easily see this band taking over the melodic death landscape in the future, no doubt. Aeternum, Heir of the Rising Sun, released September 2nd. Aeternum are a highly underrated and underappreciated Canadian melodic death metal band that have been around since 2007 and are constantly killing it each release. Heir of the Rising Sun marks their 5th studio record, exploring a historical narrative around Constantinople. With such a majestic storyline though, Aeternum delivers a full-blown epic vibe that includes orchestral components to its compositions, huge melodic riffing, catchy choruses, and just full-blown addicting song structures. The band went for a more gentle approach in the production as well, which I appreciated given the massive scope within the record. I have a hard time picking a favorite song on the album as the compositions flow so beautifully with one another. It's really meant to be enjoyed as a full experience. Absolutely check this out if you love your melodic death metal enhanced with symphonic gorgeousness and rich storytelling. Soilwork, Overgiven Hetten, released August 19th on Nuclear Blast. I've always loved Soilwork since the Chained Heart Machine days, and the average Soilwork fan knows exactly how much diverse music this band has put out throughout their massive discography. This newest effort, though, quickly became one of my favorite albums in their entire run of records. Although it's a bit on the lengthier side, over an hour, I have no idea what songs I would cut, to be honest. The band has clearly learned how to balance that extreme metal side with progressive and classic rock anthemic melodies in the best way, and I feel like this record, although it's familiar, has a new level in the band's execution. Bjorn has learned a lot about writing catchy vocal hooks, not only from his early days in Soilwork, but also with his other melodic 80s inspired rock band, Night Flight Orchestra. Some of these choruses are easily some of the best in music that I've heard this year. I've had this album on repeat since it came out. It has everything from blistering speed blast beats and melodic death metal riffing to fist pumping rock anthem riffs, and it just plain works, dude. It's sad to hear about the passing of their guitarist David Anderson so shortly after their release. What a talented soul gone far too young. Rest in peace. Do not miss this record. The Halo Effect, Days of the Lost, released August 12th on Nuclear Blast. Metalheads have been spoiled with melodic death metal this year, and that's why I've made a separate list. And with that comeback of the subgenre, the Halo Effect flew in on the scene to right the wrongs of all the salty metal fans who begrudgingly watched In Flames fall into Korn new metal territory. Although the new In Flames singles have me pretty damn hopeful, make no mistake here, this is a supergroup of In Flames and Dark Tranquillity fame, and the musicianship shows just how much mastery of the style can be showcased in one band. Days of the Lost feels, to me, musically somewhere in the Colony Clayman era of In Flames, mixed with the catchy riffing and vocal prowess of the Adama era, Dark Tranquillity. It's extremely familiar, and dude, I'm not complaining. Michael Stan, unsurprisingly, shows that he can absolutely slay the harsh and clean vocal styles that he's been perfecting for decades. Every song showcases that earworm melodic riffing and guitar harmony that you would want, and those harrowing sounds are all too familiar and highly welcome back. The 40-minute runtime is tight as hell, and this is another album that just shows that the greats got it, dude. Venom Prison, Erebos, released February 4th. My God, look at that gorgeous album artwork. I love when bands decide to go for something more on the painterly side, and it's great to see Ellerin Cantor showcased here on such a huge release. Although Venom Prison are labeled as melodic death and deathcore, I thought it was worth highlighting the record on this list. Erebos is a stunning melodic death metal album with a lot of surprises beyond just the brutal riffing and harsh vocals. I've seen a fairly polarized response to Larissa's use of clean vocals on the record, and they're on a ton, but honestly, I think you guys are being too much. I honestly love them, and I thought that they enhanced the record in a way that kept a lot of the tracks from being monotonous. One of death metal's biggest problems, in my opinion, is I get halfway through a record and I'm like, all right, I've heard enough, because you've heard enough. You've literally heard the record within the first 2 songs. Not the case here. Erebos is explosive, powerful as hell, and easily one of the most exciting death metal records that I've heard in 2022. It's creative, melodic, catchy, and every song is perfectly placed. Although it was released way back in February, I revisited this record frequently throughout the year, and that's why it had to hit this list. Allegiant, Damnum, released February 25th. Man, what a ride of a record. And for those of you new to Allegiant, they are a absurdly and honestly underappreciated technical and melodic death metal band that leans into a more emotional territory with their songwriting. Sure, I think that's where the divisiveness comes in, because tech death camp typically doesn't want anything frilly, but this is honestly where Allegiant shines. Riley McShane's clean vocals, I'd argue, save this band from falling into another run-of-the-mill melodic death metal band. And he helps them stand out immensely as a band. Sure, you've got those superbly crafted death growls and black metal shrieks, but the varied and massively dynamic instrumentation truly make Damnum shine way above many other metal albums that came out in 2022. For example, how many melodic and technical death metal bands have earworm choruses and acoustic flamenco style riffs that are executed this pristine? You don't know that many. That's because this is the band. There's a reason these dudes found a home on Metal Blade. They're crushing it, still growing, and that's why they deserve a spot to the top of this list. And my top, this was a mind-blowing record to me, and I hadn't even heard of this band before this year. An Abstract Illusion, Woe, released 9 September, and the award for my favorite cover art this year goes to Adam Burke for that outstanding piece. For those of you who caught our previous review of Abstract Illusion, I wanted to reiterate that this album is everything that I love in a metal release. Brutal, emotional, dripping with atmosphere, and totally bleak. I don't typically go for progressive metal releases, but everything here is executed to perfection. The production is gorgeous, touting a fine balance of brutal and also beautiful. The record just oozes the characteristics of a fine wine that you would enjoy in some sort of abandoned cathedral under glimmering candlelight as you lure victims to your feast. The songwriting is downright pristine, favoring twists and turns, but unafraid to jam on those long, introspective instrumental sections in between the overwhelming viciousness in the riffing and vocals. If I had to compare an Abstract Illusion to other metal bands, I would say that there's a pretty heavy dose of Watershed-era Opeth mixed with modern Enslaved. Where an Abstract Illusion cuts their own fabric, though, is they create some utterly fantastic soundscapes that honestly outdo both of those legendary bands in a lot of ways. This band is getting a ton of recognition this year, and it's completely deserved. Do not miss this record. And what are you digging for melodic death metal? If you're looking for more top lists of our 2022 roundups, check out this list right here. See you guys next time.